When you look at a functional analysis of deviance, how do functionalists claim that deviance serves a function? There's kind of two things.
It sets norms for society.
Okay, it helps to establish norms.
And it creates like new ways to do things.
Explain.
Like, if like there's a really old way to do something, and like some deviant person would like cars. Like the old way to do it was the old way to do stuff was like with buggies and carriages and stuff. But then some deviant person, by society's terms, came up with like the train engine and like the car. So then by deviance, it was functional by creating a new way to get around.
So it's creating new things.
Right, yeah. There's a couple of different things. And we could really, if we sat here, we could come up with a number of different ways that deviance is functional from a functional view. But the main thing would be they help to clarify moral boundaries and solidify moral boundaries. Okay? Who was a theorist that talked about deviance in that light? Durkheim. Okay. One of the things that you did when I was gone that day is you did analysis of strain theory with prom, remember? So what were the four types of strain that people could experience basically? Or what were the four dynamics that strain theory looked at?
Conformity.
Ritualism. Rebellion.
Innovation.
Retreatism.
Ritualism.
Ritualism.
Conformity.
Conformity. Okay. So if you agree with the goal and you agree with the accepted methods, what's that? Conformity. Okay. What page is that table on? Looks like you're on that page. Right. 180. So just write down study table on page 180 and you'll get those two questions right.
Get those two questions.
Okay. When it comes to an analysis of deviance, labeling theory fits with what mostly? What are the three main perspectives? What did you say?
SI.
SI, why?
It's like that because the labels are symbols, and then how we interpret those labels is how we feel about those symbols.
Right. So, from a labeling theory perspective, how do they determine what's deviant?
Whatever is most widely accepted.
What isn't following the norms?
Yeah, how other people respond to the behavior. Yeah. So from a labeling theorist, if somebody walked in here, like in McDonald's here, and they were just walking around in their boxers, let's say, just walking around in their boxers, and nobody responded to them at all. They're like, people serve that guy. Nobody says, put some clothes on, whatever, he just walks around. That wouldn't really be deviant from a labeling perspective, because nobody is, reacted at all. Yep. Okay, from a conflict perspective, how does deviance get defined?
Isn't it just stuff against the law?
Isn't it like rebellion, like in
Power
Libya?
kind of define what deviance is.
Right, from a conflict perspective, people in power define deviance to kind of control the people that don't have power. How do I phrase this? What subgroup, like males, females, Caucasians, etc., what group has the largest percentage of people in jail in the United States?
Whites. African American.
Percentage or?
Yeah, percentage is whites overall. How about numbers? No, percentage of the overall population. I mean, I should have rephrased that.
In terms of their own population.
In terms of their own population. Yep.
African American.
African Americans. Okay, so males or females?
Males.
Males.
Oh.
Yep. So Right.
For their population.
Yeah, and you should look up some more specific stats on that. I'm not going to tell you specifically what it is, but
Isn't it like they're like 30% of overall people in jail, but compared to their
it's a higher in the percentage of their population.
but just compared to the overall amount in jail, they're like 30%.
Yeah, so you look at like black males.
Their population was like 12%, but something like that.
Well, there was a theorist named Maurer, spelled like Joe Maurer, that studied specifically African American younger males and the percentages of them that are in prison, and it's a fairly high number. So, okay, what would Karl Marx point out about class structure?
It's in place to serve the interests of those with power and money.
That's true. Marx was a conflict theorist, right? He's like the guy that wrote the Communist Manifesto. What else would he point out?
Classes are bad.
Okay, classes are bad. Do classes
There's only
change?
There's two classes, and the bottom class is eventually rebel against the upper class.
Right, so the bourgeoisie are the people that control the means of production. The proletariat are the workers, and eventually they're going to get sick of getting oppressed, so they're going to rise up and rebel. But where does to Marx, where does class structure come from? Does it arise like constantly? What makes it continue?
Birth?
Yeah, from generation to generation. Yep. Okay. Let's say that I start out lower class, but then my daughter would become middle class, and then her kids would become upper class, right? So if you have that, what type of social mobility is that referred to as?
High.
Upward.
Yeah, it would be upward, but a little more specific.
It's either inter or intra, right?
Right.
I can never remember the difference between the two.
Okay. So figure that out. It'll be good for that question.
You don't have to go to the bathroom.
Okay, so again, if I start out lower class, my daughter is middle class, and then her kids are upper class, right? That's upward social mobility. But more specifically, what type is it? Nate said it was either intra or inter. Inter? Why do you say inter?
Because it's going between two different social
Because
classes.
it's across generations,
Yeah.
right? If I went up myself, what would that be called?
Intra.
Intra. Yep. Okay, you remember that graph that was in the notes? It showed you like quintiles, basically. So it took 20%. So it's had like the bottom 20%, the next 20%, etc. Right? The top 20% controlled a lot of the wealth in the country. Does anybody remember what that number was?
Top one, wasn't it?
No, the top 20%. How much?
95?
No.
What is it? What are you asking again?
Okay, so take the wealthiest 20% of the people, right? What percentage of overall wealth did they control in the country?
99,
No,
80.
somewhere in between.
82, 83, 84.
Look that up.
5.
Are we playing prices right now or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
$1
Then the
above.
lowest class, the lowest 20% was like way, way less, right? So there's a graph that explains that in the text. If you printed the notes off, there's a graph that explains that too, right? Okay. To some people, some theorists thought that social class, some people thought that social class was just based on what? Like most people point to what for social class?
Description?
No, like what variable?
Oh, money?
Well,
Money, right, okay. There are other people that point at other things or point to other things. What are some of the other things they point to besides money?
power and influence.
For what social class you're in?
Prestige?
Prestige of your occupation, how much power you have,
Well,
and then wealth, obviously.
Networks of people?
Okay.
dashing good looks.
Dashing good looks, that could play a role. Yeah.
That must be great.
So who are you talking about?
Huh? Yeah, that could play a role too. Yep. So, because that's some of the prestige, right? Okay. I'll just give you a true or false question for this one. True or false? It's not true or false, but it's the easiest way for me to reword it. On any given night, 500,000 people, or excuse me, less than 500,000 people are homeless in the United States. True or false? On any given night, 500,000 or less people are homeless in the United States.
False.
Okay. Okay. If you have a bunch of people in a place that don't really interact with each other, what is that an example of?
Alienation?
No, just the term for it.
A bunch of people who don't interact.
So we're interacting now, we're a group, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but if we were all just sitting here eating, and not, like, you'd be a group, and you'd be a group, and you'd be a group, but collectively we're not a group, right? It's a crowd, yep, it's a crowd. Okay, give me some examples of primary groups. I know we talked about this a little bit before, but
Family.
family is the big one. Yep, or it's not the big one, it's the most commonly shared one.
Best friends.
Friends, yep.
Besties.
BFFs,
Yeah.
besties, whatever. Okay.
Teammates.
Yeah, they could be. Right. Okay, give me an example of some
Jerks.
secondary groups then.
Coworkers.
Classrooms.
Yeah, classrooms maybe. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, a church group could be either way. Yeah. It really depends on. Right. Yeah. But the main thing is not the name necessarily; it's the level of closeness, right?
Yep.
So if you see a question on the test that asks which of the following is an example of a secondary group, don't think from your personal experience. Think in general for the most people, right? Because some people, if they have a really dysfunctional family, could basically just sleep at their house and then they're gone the rest of the time, right? So that wouldn't really be a primary group for that. Okay. Okay. In the 60s and 70s, we had a sexual revolution in the United States. What were some things, like some movements that spawned out of that? Like what happened?
Women's rights.
Okay, women's rights was tied to that. What else? Okay, homosexual rights.
Out of what? It's 10
The sexual revolution. How about in terms of like behavior specifically? Were there any changes to sexual behavior that resulted out of that?
more PDA, like more public affection.
I don't really know if that was the case. Maybe a more openness, you could say that. What else? Did people's like the age of sexual experience, first sexual experience, did that
It was okay,
go up,
younger.
go down, or
Down.
went down? Number of partners went up. Average marriage age. Average marriage age has gone up. Okay. Then they had a sexual counter-revolution. What resulted from the sexual counter-revolution?
Yeah.
A greater interest in like renewing, basically undoing everything that happens in sexual revolution.
Right. So like more monogamy, more abstinence, more limiting the number of partners overall. So that it's basically the exact opposite of whatever happened in the revolution. Okay? Okay, when you talk about marriage, how common is adultery?
Too common.
In
was
men,
good
it's
answer,
25%. In women, it's only, yeah.
Yeah, in men it's 25%, in women it's 10%. Why do you think that is? Okay, that'd be kind of a conflict analysis, but that would be an argument. Men have more power over women. If we were in a society where it's the other way around, maybe it'd be switched. Okay, good
Men
point.
don't have as much responsibility because they don't have to carry a baby
Right,
if
yeah.
anything goes wrong.
Yeah, biologically,